All right. So as we were saying, okay, the thalamus is often referred to as the sensory switchboard. Does anybody know what a switchboard is? It's kind of an old school thing. What is, yeah. So back in the day before like cell phones and whatnot, when you wanted to call long distance, you had to call a long distance operator and they had to connect you to wherever you needed to call. All right. The thalamus is called the sensory switchboard because it connects sensory signals to the appropriate area of the brain for perception, which is understanding. So, sight, hearing, touch, taste, balance, body sense, okay, all of those are sent to the correct area of the brain so that the brain can make sense of the neural signal. So, for instance, let's use vision. So, you know, what we see is not actually what is coming into our eyes. Okay. What we actually see, like what comes into our eyes is basically just light reflecting. Okay. So actually, what we're seeing right now is not necessarily real. It's like how our brain makes sense of the reflecting light. We'll get more into that next unit. It's kind of weird. But so light signals enter the eyeball, all right, and they hit the back of the eyeball. Anybody know what the back of the eyeball is called? It has a bunch of really sensitive cells on it. Somebody in here may. The what? The retina. Yep. Back of the eyeball, the retina, has what's called photoreceptors on it, which pick up different wavelengths of light. These photoreceptors trigger a neural impulse that travels down the optic nerve to the thalamus. Okay. And then the thalamus sends that signal from the optic nerve, that neural signal, down another set of neurons to the back of the brain, back here, what is called the occipital lobe, the visual cortex, to be perceived. Okay, so we actually, what you're seeing right now is actually being made sense of back here in the back of your brain. Okay, the vision center of your brain is back here. You're not, it feels like you're seeing it in your eyes, but it's actually, you're seeing it back here. Okay, it's your brain that's making sense of it. Same thing like with touch. Somebody burns themselves, gets sent up the spinal cord, gets sent up the brainstem to the thalamus, and then the thalamus sends it right around here, what is called the somatosensory cortex, which is where we perceive touch. Okay, the only sense that does not do this, only sense that does not go through the thalamus is smell. Okay, and that's because smell comes in, we smell stuff, like it hits some receptors right here, and then we perceive smell right there. Okay, so it wouldn't make sense for it to travel all the way up to the thalamus to come back down. Okay, so the thalamus is the sensory switchboard. It sends neural signals, sensory neural signals, to the correct area of the brain, whether it's hearing in the auditory cortex, vision in the visual cortex, taste in the gustatory cortex, touch in the somatosensory cortex. All right, it sends it to the correct area of the brain to be perceived. Okay. There are a couple of like it can malfunction from time to time. There's some instances where it can malfunction. Has anybody ever heard of synesthesia? Mm-hmm. Yep. No, the drug that numbs you. No, Rajab, that's anesthesia. Okay. Um, that synesthesia is a disorder. It doesn't really affect people in any negative way, where basically the wires in the thalamus have been crossed, and so different senses sort of interact in ways that we aren't used to. So people with synesthesia like might taste music, okay, or like each letter of the alphabet is a certain color in their mind, okay, or any of these things where their senses have kind of gotten crossed. You see it more commonly in people who are really creative. And a lot of times, people who have it don't even realize that they have it because they think it's just normal to taste a musical note. And then somebody's like, no, I don't. Are you on mushrooms right now? Like, no. And then they realize that, something's different, but it doesn't affect them in any negative way. Okay. All right. So, any questions there about the thalamus? Okay. All right. Now, moving on to the next PowerPoint, which is the one that starts with the limbic system here. All right. So, staying in the forebrain, we're going to be in the forebrain from now on, and moving to outside of the thalamus. Okay. Surrounding the thalamus, there's the thalamus right here, and then you can kind of see the brain stem. Okay, same thing right there. There's the brain stem. Surrounding the thalamus in sort of a horseshoe shaped system is what is called the limbic system. Limbus means border in Latin. It's the border between basically the brain stem and the cerebral cortex. The limbic system is a system of structures that deals with a lot of different things. Okay. It's relatively primal, meaning like, all mammals have it, but it doesn't deal with like higher level consciousness. But it does a lot of things that control our behavior. Deals with memory, emotion. It's often referred to as the emotional center of the brain. And then drives. Okay, so anybody know what is a drive? Anybody know? Yeah, okay. A drive is an internal push, something internal that causes you to be something biological that causes you to behave in a certain way. Okay, so something biological that causes you to be horny, something biological that causes you to be hungry. Okay, and because of these biological things, if you're horny, then you're seeking out sex. If you're hungry, you're seeking out food. Okay, etc. Okay. All right. So the first structure we got to go over in this is what is called the hypothalamus. It's called hypothalamus because it's below the thalamus. Okay, you can see it. You don't need to know exactly where all of these structures are, but like right here, like I think that's the hypothalamus right there. If it were to ask you though, like which structure would be in this general area, and then it would tell you, it would give you a list of structure, and one of the structures would be in the limbic system. Okay, but you don't need to know exactly which is which. Hypothalamus is maybe the most important structure in the brain. It deals with a lot of our metabolic functions, meaning metabolism. Okay, controls the speed of our metabolism and our drives. Okay, if you're sexually attracted to somebody, okay, that's the hypothalamus releasing a neurotransmitter called oxytocin. Okay, if you're hungry, that's the hypothalamus releasing certain neurotransmitters to communicate with the endocrine system. If you're thirsty, so on and so forth. Okay, it controls all of these different things. Okay, whether it directly controls them or secondarily controls them through the pituitary gland. It deals a lot with our biological rhythms. Okay, it's kind of what keeps our body on track. So like sleep, when you're awake, when you're awake, when you're tired. All right, a lot of that is controlled secondarily by the hypothalamus. It helps regulate body temperature, okay, which is also an autonomic function. So it plays a big role in controlling the autonomic nervous system. Okay, but one of the main things that it is that you should associate it with is drives. So sex drive, hunger drive, thirst drive. Okay, um, if you're cold and you want to get warm, that's an internal drive. Okay, all if you're tired and you want to go to sleep, all right, that's an internal drive. And there are a couple of different disorders that are associated with the hypothalamus. One of them being a disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome. Prader-Willi syndrome is so we have two areas of our hypothalamus that we'll learn about later that deal with hunger and feeling full. One of them sends hunger signals down to the stomach, the rest of the body. One of them sends signals down to the stomach and to the rest of the brain saying that it's full, called the lateral and the ventromedial hypothalamus. In this disorder that we're going to watch a video on, Prader-Willi syndrome, okay, those two areas of the hypothalamus basically do not work. Like they're shut off. So people with Prader-Willi syndrome, no matter how much they eat, they never feel full. Okay? They never feel full. They're always hungry, no matter how much they've eaten. Okay? The signals that cells send up to the brain telling them that they have enough energy in them, those don't communicate with the hypothalamus in this case because they have just basically they're just non-functioning. Um, People with Prader-Willi syndrome, if they are not supervised, will eat themselves to death. Okay, they will eat so much that they will die. Okay, because their body doesn't know when it is actually full. Okay, so we're gonna watch a quick little video on that, and then we'll come back to that slide. Okay, so there you go. All right, hypothalamic disorder, Prader-Willi syndrome. Any questions on that? Okay, so it also, the hypothalamus controls the endocrine system, which is a system that uses hormones that we'll talk about later on, through the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland, and it's controlled by the hypothalamus. It's what's called a feedback loop. Okay, and then lastly, one of the other really big things is with the hypothalamus and a couple structures around it is motivation, specifically what I call approach avoidance motivation. So, kind of deciding or influencing the decision of, is the reward of something worth it versus the cost of it? So, the hypothalamus, and then a structure right by it called the nucleus accumbens, is a part of what is called the reward system, the reward pathway of the brain. And it kind of helps to decide like what we do to get a rewarding feeling or not. So, like, if you're thinking about sneaking out of your house to go meet up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, the hypothalamus and the reward pathway is going to kind of decide, like, all right, is that worth it? Am I going to get a rewarding enough feeling compared to what would happen if I were to get caught doing it? Is that worth it? Okay, so what do you think? What neurotransmitter do you think would be heavily involved here in the reward pathway? Dopamine, yep. This is the nucleus accumbens, is where the vast majority of dopamine is produced. All right, so I do have a way, because it's approach avoidance, that also deals with fight or flight too. Okay, deciding whether it's worth it to fight or whether it's worth it to go away. So the way that you can remember the major functions, I'm going to put it here in the chat. Major functions of the hypothalamus is the 4 F's. Okay, feeding, fighting, fleeing, and mating. I mean, if you think about it, yeah, if you can't figure out the 4th F, I'll just let you figure it. I'll let you figure it out on your own. David, you're fine. Okay. I guess we could say fornicating too, but it's not as fun. Okay. All right. So, any questions here? I got one more quick video with this. All right. So, in terms of the reward pathway, here in this video, you're going to see they have hooked a rat. They've hooked a rat up to an electrode that is in its reward pathway in the hypothalamus, and they've taught the rat to press a lever. And when the rat presses a lever, it stimulates that area of the brain, giving it that rewarding feeling. Okay, and so they want to see here, what is the rat willing to go through to get that rewarding feeling. So they're going to put this rat, in what's called an obstruction box, which is a box that has levers on both sides that they can hit like 3 times to get it, and then it stops. And in the middle of it is an electrified field. Okay, so the rat has to run across an electrified field and get shocked to reach the reward. So we're going to see what the rat does here in this situation. All right, so there you can see that that rat willing to hurt itself just to get that reward. Because of that, what do you think the reward pathway? What might it play another really big role in? Drug addiction. Yep, plays a really big role in drug addiction because with drug addiction, that's they kind of gotta decide like how much they want to put their body through to get whatever drug it is. Yep, good. All right, so now large structure that kind of surrounds the limbic system, the hippocampus. Okay, the hippocampus's main function, the one that you need to know for the purpose of this class, is processing new memories. Okay, basically what it does is anything that we deem important enough to remember, okay, the hippocampus works to put it from short-term memory to long-term memory. And then it allows for, so that's what's called encoding of memory. And then it also helps with retrieval of memory. So the hippocampus does not store memories in it. The hippocampus is like a librarian. Okay, it takes the memories to where they're supposed to go, and it goes and it gets them from where they are, but it doesn't just store it in there. Memory is stored all over the brain. Okay, memory is actually stored in the synapses between neurons, specifically in the cerebral cortex. All right, so the hippocampus helps it from going from short-term memory, which is limited, to long-term memory, which is unlimited. It also plays a big role in spatial memory, which is memory of the environment, of an environment that you are in. And because of this, they actually see a like they see early deterioration of the hippocampus in Alzheimer's disease. Okay, and one of the early symptoms of Alzheimer's is disorientation, meaning people will be somewhere and all of a sudden they'll be like, "Where the hell am I? I don't remember getting here. I don't know where I am. I can't find my way around." Okay, so hippocampus processing memories, encoding memories and sending them out, and then retrieving memories to process them. All right, retrieving memories so that they can come into consciousness. Now, they actually discovered the function of the hippocampus by accident. There was a patient named HM, Henry Meliason, that was having seizures. They isolated where the seizures were, and they went in and they destroyed the two areas that were producing the seizures, the hippocampi. Okay. And I forgot to say this earlier, but we have, of all these structures, we have two of them. We have one in each hemisphere of the brain because we have a right and a left hemisphere. They went in and they destroyed the hippocampi, which they didn't at the time know what it did. It fixed his seizures, but they actually realized, shit, he now has no memory. Okay. After the surgery, he didn't have seizures anymore, but he also couldn't produce any new memories. And he couldn't really remember anything from the past 10 years. So unfortunately, we find out about the brain sometimes like that. So here is a little video on Henry Meliason. All right, so there you go. Okay, and we'll talk a lot more about memory later on. We'll actually do an entire unit on it. But one of the things they said was that they found from this that different types of memory are processed elsewhere. So like your ability to do things is different than your ability to know things. In the chat, I put a mnemonic to help you remember the hippocampus. Okay, you will always remember seeing a hippo on campus. I know on this slide, this is an elephant. Okay, somebody yesterday pointed that out to me, thought I didn't know my animals. I do. Okay, the reason I don't, it's an elephant is because elephants never forget. Elephants have really good memories. I understand that this is not a hippopotamus right here. Okay, so. All right, any questions on the hippocampus? All right, lastly, the amygdala. Okay, the amygdala is a very sort of primal, um, very sort of primal structure within the limbic system that deals with basic emotions, basic emotional reactions, specifically fear and anger. Now, when we talk about emotions, to have actual emotion, we have to have consciousness. We have to be aware of ourself. So the amygdala actually deals with like more so what we would call like a gut instinct with something. Like when you just like feel afraid really, really quickly, like this cat right here. All right, why are cats afraid of cucumbers? Yeah, I think they look like snakes. So they have this very sort of primal evolutionary reaction to them. Okay. Um, but to have emotion, emotion involves being conscious of yourself. That's why, like, your dog doesn't have like real emotion. Like, your dog doesn't like sit there and think, like, man, I love this person so much. Like, they're not like, they have like, they understand that you are associated with certain things. They are excited when they see you. They might not even know why they're excited, but your dog doesn't like actually have emotions. That's like when my mom will be like with one of my parents' dogs, she'll be like, oh, you know, Jeb is mad. He peed downstairs. Like, I don't think Jeb's not sitting there being like, these assholes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go. Like, you have to have awareness of yourself to have actual emotion, which only humans and they think dolphins have it too. Okay. So the amygdala, basic emotions like fear and anger. Um, how many of you all have gotten mad about something and you knew that you shouldn't be as mad as you were about it, but you also just felt like you had no control over it? Like you're just like overcome with anger and you're like, this is kind of irrational, but I'm really pissed off right now. Okay. Yeah. Probably all of you all, because that's a very teenage thing. Okay. That's your amygdala. And especially for you all, we'll talk more about this next class, but like your all's frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. Your frontal lobe regulates your amygdala. So y'all's amygdalas can fire off signals willy-nilly. Okay, and then your brain has to interpret them however it does. They found that damage to the amygdala, damage, I don't know why this thing writes like this, can lead to no fear response. That says no fear response. What that means is like, so they've seen this with psychopaths. Psychopaths don't have normal human emotions. Um, and psychopaths will report being in situations where they know that they should feel afraid. Like consciously, they know they should be afraid, but they're just not. Okay. because they don't have emotions. And even brain scans have shown that psychopaths have little to no activity in their amygdala. Okay. All right. Are there any questions about that? I have a quick video for this too. Way to remember amygdala. Amygdala is anger. Okay, so they both start with A. All right, so in this video, what you're gonna see is a cat that has electrodes attached to an area up here on the top of the brain called the motor cortex, which is involved in motor movement, and then another cat that has electrodes that are implanted in the amygdala. And they're going to try to elicit a fear response out of both of them. With the one with the motor cortex, the cat jumps away from the food, but immediately goes back to it, showing that they're not actually afraid of it. It's just an automatic reaction. Okay. The one with the amygdala, you'll see, is different. Okay. We're almost done. So all they did there was they just stimulated the motor cortex, which made the cat move in that way. Okay, but it didn't have anything to do with emotion. Okay, and obviously overactivity can lead to anxiety, stuff like that. My sister's dog must have overactivity because the damn dog is afraid of everything, including a bag of goldfish and a white bowl. And the dog, when I was watching it last weekend or 2 weekends ago, it watched me put on a headband to go for a run. And the second I had the headband on, the dog was like, nope, not doing this, and was scared shitless of me until I took it off. And so overactivity can cause that sort of response, especially in animals. All right. Okay. Any questions about that? All right, so we might watch this video next class because it deals with the frontal lobe and the amygdala. All right, so that's the limbic system: hypothalamus, hippocampus, and amygdala. Now, for the rest of the time with the brain, we're just gonna do like one slide right now, and then I'm gonna let y'all go. We're gonna move outwards to the outer layer of our brain. Okay, about an inch to 2 inches thick, what is called the cerebral cortex. Okay, cerebral means circular, I think, and then a cortex is an outer layer of an organ. This is the top layer of the brain here, the wrinkly area. You can see it here. It's made up of what's called gray matter and then white matter on the inside. And then like, here's the limbic system right in here. And then here's the brain stem right there. And then right there's what's called the corpus callosum. And then there's the thalamus right there. Okay. The cerebral cortex is the control center. Okay. This is what makes us human. And to have consciousness means like awareness of yourself. So like most animals don't have like awareness of themselves as like part of a group or whatnot. Like we do. Okay. To have consciousness, we need to have this cerebral cortex. Okay. The cerebral cortex allows us to know who we are. Why, like dogs don't have like moral standards for themselves. Okay. Like a dog's not like, you know what? I'm not going to poop inside because that's just not who I am. Okay. Like humans, though, that's consciousness and awareness. So the cerebral cortex is made up of all these bumps and grooves, what are called gyri and sulci. The reason that we have these bumps and grooves, okay, the gyri are the bumps and the sulci are the grooves, is to create more surface area. Because if we didn't have them, if our brain was just all laid out flat, it would be about the size of a large pizza. But our bodies aren't built to hold that, neither is our head. Okay, so we have these bumps and grooves to keep our brain small, right, but have enough surface area to be able to do all of the higher level processing that we need to do. The more bumps and grooves, all right, and the thickness of them, okay, the smarter an organism is. So if you look here, here's a human brain. We have a lot of these gyri and sulci. Right here is a dolphin brain. They actually have more of these gyri and sulci than we do. But it's not as thick. You can see how ours is like real thick right here. Theirs is a little bit thinner. Okay. But they do believe that dolphins have consciousness. They think that the dolphins are aware of themselves. They know that dolphins can understand symbolic language. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh, they think that dolphins have all of these too because they use echolocation, right? Which we obviously can't use. Okay, so human brain, lots of gyri and sulci. Dolphin brain, lots of gyri and sulci. Rat brain, none, very smooth. Rats are dumb. Okay, rats are not smart. Okay, so they're able to just respond to things. They're not able to think about things. All right, so the more gyri and sulci, sort of the higher level the organism is. Okay.